Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. This is a video retrospective to the Evil Within 1, which is a game that came out in 2014 and was very well hyped before the release of the game, as it was directed by Shinji Mikami, the same director of Resident Evil 4, which gave a really huge push and hype for this game, as a lot of Resident Evil fans and also Silent Hills fans and other fans of the horror genre were really excited for this game. But at the end, it received mixed reviews, as there were a lot of people that loved it and also a lot of people that didn't like it. And there were also a lot of people that were in the middle, like me, as I truly loved half or close to half of the game. But as we progress through the game, we reach the half of the game and the action starts going up and the horror starts going down, and it becomes really generic near the end. But really the ending was the saving grace for this game, in my opinion. So let's explain why I'm thinking that in this retrospective. So when we start the game, we start in a very well crafted horror scenery and structured level, as it's scripted, yes, but it's very entertaining, as you can play the same sequence again and again and again and not get bored. That's why I'm saying it's very well crafted, even though it's not a puzzle, it's not something like that, but the atmosphere, the horror, the graphics, even though they were dated, but the art style was very high level, which gave you this impression to be in like an old time, but at the same time you're in modern time, as we are controlling a police officer, if I'm not mistaken. Nonetheless, as you're progressing through the game, these sequences start, it's like a Silent Hills inspired level design. As you progress through the game will keep playing these psychological horror things. As the level design changes, the doors start appearing, disappearing. Some very scary monstrosities will appear that you have to kill, or they will follow you and then you'll have to kill as one of the bosses in the game in the parking lot, that I think a lot of people are familiar with. So as you're progressing through the game, you'll find, the horror starts going down. As you see in the sequence here, when you have a partner, as this is very annoying. If the partner screws up, you'll end up dying too and having a game over screen and reload. This is very annoying in one of the parts why people did not like the game. And as you see here too, in this scene, like this is a very, I think, good level, as you have these monsters that can follow you and very hard to kill. And you'll have also to save your ammo. So we have to save our ammo, and at the same time we are forced sometimes to kill the enemies to progress through the level. So we have to be very careful where we shoot the enemies and what weapons to use. We have to be very careful with what weapons we craft and stuff like that. As you see here, the health is very similar to the health bar Resident Evil 4, but it's not like, it doesn't have the same color. But we have also an endurance bar. As you can see here, we can have a bomb or a torch. Not a torch, that thing, the inflammable bomb, as that you see here. I have many weapons like a revolver, sniper, and an arbalete. I think we call it that. Like, it's an arrow shooter. Yeah, we loot these, it's like money, it's like a chemical thing, that is the money of the game. So we have to go to mirror. In each level there are a lot of mirrors that we can access in order to access the save room. Well, it looks like the save room. That's why I'm saying it's a mix of Resident Evil and Silent Hills. As in Silent Hills, we took a look at the mirrors in order to switch dimensions or switch the psychological state of the character, But here, we look at the mirrors to access the safe zone. So when we access the safe zone, we have this a machine where we can save, and also there is a nurse there that kind of, you know, keeps you company, and you feel that you have company and you're not alone. So we can save there, or we can even have a chair where we sit and upgrade our character using these points that we collect on enemies we killed, or that we find scattered throughout the level. So yeah, now that we talk about the health system, you know, the health system is obvious. You take damage and you can heal using medipacks. The save system, the mirror system that I talked about, that was inspired by the Silent Hills franchise, and also the shape-shifting of the levels, the psychological horror aspect that was inspired from the Silent Hills franchise, and the gameplay and horror of the thing, that the combat system is inspired from the Resident Evil 4 and 5. The like talking the combat, because the combat has nothing like to do with Silent Hills besides beating up enemies. So yeah, and also the aspect of enemies following you, like the enemy you'll see here, it looks like a spider. She keeps following you, and she's very scary. That reminds us of Resident Evil 3's Nemesis. So to me personally, this game, in its globality, was like a fan service. It was a very nostalgic and really good game to play. And you see here in the screen, she's following you. That's this like demonic entity that you see here, and you have to slow her down by using these fire extinguishers, like these not extinguishers, but these fire things here that you shoot. The pipes will release fire until we reach the boss fight arena, where we kill this enemy. I'm not even sure that we kill it. And this boss fight was so good, like for me personally, that you can play through it again and again and again. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, you start the game really well with all these horror set pieces and structured levels. Well, the puzzles weren't very hard either. And you know, throughout the levels, you have all these, you know, you'll play a lot of hours to the game, and you're progressing very well. You're enjoying the game. The game keeps getting better and better and better until you reach this wall where the action takes off. And this is my problem with the game. This is where I'm really disappointed with the game. It should have continued throughout the horror. Like, it's okay to have like 1 or 2 levels that are action, a little bit of action oriented in not the dark, but in the light of the day. Like to give the player fresh air and then go back to the horror. But no, the game will just turn into an island level for Resident Evil 4 near the end, and you have just to kill a bunch of enemies, and the scare factors go down, and the mystique of the game goes down with it, which is like disappointing, because the game, most of it is really good. It's very immersive. It's crazy immersive. It's one of the greatest horror games still, in my opinion, this generation. Even though I was disappointed by the action set pieces near the end, like the heavy focus in the action, was very disappointed by that, and it really left a bad taste in my mouth. But that doesn't mean the game wasn't good. Despite the performance issues on consoles, as I played the game on PS4 Pro, I really did not notice any, besides the 30, I think the game ran at 30 frames per second. Yeah, that was the bummer about it. The art style was really good, the gameplay was good, the combat system was really well made. You know, as you also have a stealth system in some levels, you can just stealth and kill the enemies without them really knowing you're there, which is a good thing. So we have stealth, the combat system, and it all works well. In the horror aspect, you know, you don't have many enemies, you have one big boss that is really scary, like this one you see in the screen, and that's about it. But when the game takes up the action, as I said before, there are a bunch of enemies in front of you, 5, 6 to 10 or even 20 enemies. You start to see the limitations of the combat system. The combat system, you see the the limitations, because you also see the flaws of this combat system. Is it was not designed to handle more than 10 enemies at the same time, with something that the game forces you to do near the end, as you have to kill all those enemies. You have to be very lucky and use your skill and a lot of reflexes to kill those enemies. Furthermore, you don't really enjoy those parts of the game that don't use the combat system well, that really don't work well with the combat system. As I'm sure the director of the game, Shinji Mikami, thought that it would be a good thing to turn up the action, but in reality it really didn't match up. As we saw that too in Resident Evil 4, they really ramped up the action near the end, but the difference here with the Resident Evil 4 combat system, gunplay, allowed you to handle more than 100 enemies at the same time, and I'm being serious. If you set the difficulty even pro in the island, if you know how to use the gameplay, you know, the quick turn, and the weaponry that you have, the health medics that you have, the health packs, sorry, you really can go and beat them all up and have a great time. But with this game, as you have the stamina system, even though you improve it, even though you can upgrade it, it's limited. You cannot keep running forever. And the character also feels heavier than Leon, which really doesn't guarantee that. As you see here, this is one of the sections I talked about that are heavy action focused. As you have enemies throwing bombs at you, it really breaks the immersion of the game. As you see, as you will say if you play the game, like, is this like a horror game or is this a joke? Like, am I playing a horror game or I'm playing a shooter or Call of Duty? As I really had the impression of playing a Call of Duty game here, as you had to take cover and kept cover and just kill them. You know, you take cover and you shoot, take cover and you shoot, which really broke the game in some aspects. So, yeah, that was the worst part of the game, probably. And yeah, that's about it for the bad parts of the game. Like, that was the biggest disappointment and bummer, as they also should have focused on creating a game that had better puzzles and a better level design throughout the game, cut off all these useless action set pieces that weren't really that impressive. So, to continue this retrospective and to conclude it, because I think I've talked about mostly everything, the game is really good. They have great combat system for the horrific, not horrific, but the really good and fun horror levels. And I think the saving grace for this game, as I've said, is the ending, as the endings really gives you this, as you want to keep playing the game. This ending is a cliffhanger to the next game, the Evil Within 2, that I've played too, and I think was good throughout the game, as they fix this action-oriented scenes. We don't have that anymore, thank God, but I'm gonna do a video on that too, I think. Anyway, so yeah, that was the worst part of the game. This is the action thing, like the heavy action. The game was not made for this. The combat system was not made for this. It was made for, as I said, like the first levels of the game, horror, great atmosphere. You know, some enemies that are very lethal have limited ammo. As you have limited ammo, you have to really manage your resources very well. So yeah, the boss fights though are really good. That's something that I applaud the developers for in this game. The boss fights are very impressive, as they take like some monstrosities that you only dream of at night and they transform them into bosses, which gives the game really it increases this horror aspect of the game, which makes the game even better than it already is, which makes the game for me an 8 out of 10. In my opinion, it was a solid 8 out of 10. If it wasn't for the heavy action focused scenes, I think the game would have closely been one of the greatest games this generation. But no, it's not. It's a good game this generation, but also one of the greatest in the horror aspect, because the horror aspect in this generation wasn't very good as the only game that really delivered. The really like the Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8 is okay. I think the horror aspect. Resident Evil 2 remake was amazing, and yeah, those are the games that I really remember that are delivered this generation, as we had many disappointments. And hopefully you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section. So yeah, this is for the retrospective. As you can see, the game really aged well, as you can still play it to this day and have fun. And if you are willing to disregard the annoying sequences of the game and just put the game in the normal difficulty or less, you'll probably have a good time. But if you put the game in the harder difficulty, you'll probably, and if your first playthrough, it's gonna be really, really bad. As you can see in this boss fight here, to talk, this is what I'm talking about when I say the horror elements, like this thing here. It only looks like a monster you will see in a nightmare. And they took that and made it into a boss fight, into the parking lot. This is the parking lot I've said. As you can see, this boss was hard, it was challenging, and also very doable, as it beat you up and you also can heal and run away from it. And as you have the stamina system, it really intensified the boss fight, as you can only get it far away in so much time. You cannot just keep running away. You have a limited stamina bar and you have to manage it and really know where to go if you choose to run. And also the boss has a weak point, as you see. So that's about it. I think that I touched among all the points. I mean, if this is really a retrospective or a review. Yeah, I think it's more of both. It's more of both, a review and a retrospective. So I hope the video was entertaining. Keep a like below. Make sure to like the video and share it with your friends that like the game and want to hear a good opinion of the game, I think. If you disagree, just write in the comment section why you disagree. And yeah, and if you dislike the videos and like for some reason, make sure to leave a dislike too. Like that will be also appreciated. But I'll prefer a like. That will be really moral boosting for me. And yeah, that's about it for the video. I hope the video was good, and see you next time.